Okay, so today I wanted to talk to you about the life cycle of a star. Remember the other day when we did the first grade lesson? We talked about stars. And we learned that, you know, they came from that big explosion, no? And they've been actually probably are of all the bodies that we have in space, are the ones that they've been the longest. So today we're going to talk about how a star gets created. Okay, so the main sequence of a star, in the star life cycle, it starts in a nebula. Nebula is kind of like a place where kind of like a nest for stars. This is where they are born, okay? At the beginning, when the star is born, it's just made of one element. That element is called hydrogen, okay? Some people think in the past that the stars were just made of gas, or made of hydrogen. We know that the state is a little different, but we know that at the beginning, they are made of hydrogen. And that happens for a long time. Hydrogen is the most basic of all elements, all chemical elements that we can find, okay? Actually, it's the simplest one, and it's very important. Then, at one point, you need to think that the star is like a factory. Think about the strongest factory you can find in the universe. So stars make really, really a lot of strength, and they have a lot of power. So at one point, that power gets so strong that it makes the hydrogen change. That process is called fusion, and hydrogen adds the next element. The next element is helium. You probably know helium because you know balloons, usually we put helium, and sometimes we put it in our mouth and it has that funny voice that we get when we put helium. Okay? So helium, what happens in the star is that it started fusing to helium. That is, most of the star becomes helium. When this happens, the star knows, I'm getting too old, and probably I'm ending my days. Okay? Getting close to die. But still, when this happens, the star has 1 million years left. So that's a lot for us. Think about how long is the life of a star when they get to that point. After a while, we have the next thing. The star fuses into a next thing. They move from the helium to the next element. The next element is carbon. We know what carbon is. Carbon or coal was used as in the past to have heat in the houses, to burn fire. Probably you use carbon or coal when you're doing a barbecue. Also, it's very interesting because carbon, if you put it in a very specific way, guess what? That's a diamond. So carbon, which is something cheap, can become something very complicated. So carbon, when the star fuses into carbon, we know that the star has left only 1,000 years. He knows that. I'm gonna die in 1,000 years. But it's still a long time, no? So the next step that the star fuses, it becomes is oxygen. And probably you know oxygen, no? Is what we use for breathing, okay? It's a very important element, not just for breathing, is that when we combine oxygen with hydrogen, we make water. So this is one of the elements that we need for life. So it's a very, very important element, actually. Actually, oxygen, when it combines in a special way, it creates ozone. And remember that ozone layer is what protects us from the rays of the sun. So it's such an important element. When the star fuses into oxygen, guess what? Only 7 more years for the star. So less than your life. So think about it. From this here, it was, oh, I still have 1 million years. Here, I still have 1,000 years. Here is, I only have 7 more years, and things are going to start to speed up really fast. The next element that the star fuses is neon. Neon is an element that is famous too, because probably when you go around the city in Lakeland and you go at night, you see a lot of neon signs. when you pass through some stores and some places, that makes a very specific light, okay? So when the star fuses into neon, guess what? It's 1 year left. The star is starting to think, okay, I am dying then, okay? So the next step, the next element that the star fuses, it is magnesium. Okay, magnesium is a metal, and magnesium is also used if you go to gymnastics. People put magnesium in their hands so they can stick better to the bars. I know, for example, there's some basketball players that they put magnesium in the hands so the ball does not slip from the hands. The thing is that when the star fuses into magnesium, the star has 2 more days to live. Okay, let's go for the next one. The next one, the next element that comes is silicon. And silicon is also another kind of metal. It's important because, believe it or not, silicon is used in all the computers that you have. All the chips that we have inside computers are made of silicon. So it's such an important element. It's so important that right now the place where most of the computers designed in the world is called Silicon Valley. That is here in the United States. Okay? And when it becomes silicon, that means that we are really, 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 really close. Actually, it's 1/8 of a second. Because the next that it fuses into iron. And when it fuses into iron, the iron cannot fuse and the star explodes all around. Everything goes away. It's a big explosion. That explosion is so big that all the elements that are inside of the star, they all get shoot away. They all move everywhere. That's what happened when the stars were created. Some of them were getting to this age and they were exploding. And guess what? All the elements that were inside of the star, they started moving away. And remember that planet that it was not too cold or not too hot, that it was going around the sun? That planet didn't have any life yet. But it started being bombarded by all these things, by the stars. And think about it. In this, we find hydrogen, we find carbon, we find oxygen, okay? And the combination of these ones will give you nitrogen. Those 4 elements are what they are going to be able to create life. Life comes from the combination of those 4 elements. So actually, if life is created by the explosion of the stars, guess what? What are you made of? Yes.
Stars?
You are made of the combination of the stars.
So I'm gonna explode?
You're not going to explode? No.
Okay.
Okay? So this is a very cool